We've heard a lot at Faith and Freedom about all of the great victories that have been won recently. And I want to talk very briefly about a challenge we have in keeping those victories going and building on them and expanding them and making them permanent for the American people. And in that regard, I was thrilled to be here in Washington at a time that a giant red wave has overtaken the nation's capital, right? And by the way, the red wave I'm talking about has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with the Washington Capitals. Do you know that there were 200,000 people minimum in the streets last night in the middle of the night, and they were celebrating. And I was talking to some people here in Washington, people saying, this is the greatest day of my life. The Capitol, I don't even care about hockey. I've got to admit, it's a Canadian game, right? And you talk about collusion. The star for the Capitals is named Alex Ovechkin. He's Russian. This is not fake news. It's real. There's 74% of the Washington Capitals are foreign-born. It doesn't matter, you know, because this is a great victory and people feel part of it. And we Americans, we love our sports. I mentioned I don't care about hockey. I care a great deal about baseball. And I feel better when my Seattle Mariners actually win. And I don't even know yet because I've been here about what happened last night against Tampa Bay. But people care about sports and they love sports in America. Here is my question for you. What can we do as conservatives to reach that 30% of Americans who never vote, and don't care about politics, but a lot of them care deeply about the Seattle Mariners or the Washington Capitals or the Atlanta Braves or some of the great sports teams we have, maybe even the Philadelphia Eagles, world champions. As long as they continue not to kneel, right? All right. So here is the deal. Think about it. What is it about sports that engages people so much that we can learn from about engaging people in politics, which we know to be even more important than sports? Let me mention three things. There are three things about sports that people realize, that they don't realize about politics, don't feel about politics. One is, with sports, you don't demonize your opponents. Number two is that with sports, there's a sense that there are rules and it's fair. Cheating is not allowed. At least it's not supposed to be. Number three is with sports, there is a feeling of personal involvement. Let me talk about each of these very, very quickly because they're important. When it comes to this idea that with sports you don't demonize the opponents, you don't win over the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Who even knew there was a Las Vegas Golden Knights in hockey, thinking, oh, these guys are the worst people ever. They're lowlives, they're cheaters. Some of them probably are. But you know what? You don't say that. Because when you're engaged in a sporting event, you do better. You appeal to the crowd more if both sides are sympathetic. And one of the problems with our politics right now, and it's certainly a huge problem for liberals, they want everything as the worst. It's not enough that they disagree with President Trump. He is the worst human being. He is the worst. And everyone with the administration is corrupt and they're all horrible. This, of course, depresses people from being interested in politics. We have had our most participatory elections when there have been two candidates for president, for instance, who both appealed to people and struck people as significant individuals. So let us avoid the demonization of opponents. The second point is the idea of playing by rules. Part of the difficulty with politics right now is you can't even get a straight story. The people who are covering the story are cheerleaders for one side or another. Can you imagine if the only source of sports information you got was utterly bigoted? Well, the Yankees lost last night, but they surely played better, and they deserve to win. I mean, this is one of the things that we need to focus on in our politics, is a better source of fair information and being more transparent about avoiding the cheating and playing by rules. And the third point is the point of personal involvement. There are lots of people last night who were saying, I was responsible for the Capitals winning this great victory. Okay, how was I responsible? Because I wore the same T-shirt, or I went to the same restaurant. There was some guy who said, I know I did it because whenever I would bring my car in to get looked at, it would mean the Capitals won, and I did it last night. Okay, what are people showing here with this sense of personal involvement? What they're showing is that they believe in some higher power controlling things. And when you think about rooting for sports, don't you really feel, well, this is the gods, plural, or it is a God thing? Let us have the same sense of politics. Let us support organizations like Faith and Freedom that get people involved, that give people a personal stake. Because once you go to a personal stake, if you go to a rally or you give a campaign contribution or you get involved in an organization like this, then yes, you are part of it. And then it is not just a win for some candidate far away, it's a win for you. And that's what we need, is victories for America and victories for the conservative cause. And with that in mind, we can go forward and maybe have people as happy as they should be for victories for our elected representatives as they are for our sports heroes. Because you know what? It's even more noble for people to work in public service. Let's give people the credit they deserve, the support they deserve, with a personal involvement that can energize this country. God bless Faith and Freedom and Ralph Reed and all the great work that is being done. And let's go out with an election coming up and win this one for the Gipper. Thanks very, very much.